Well, good afternoon and welcome. My name is Dave Smith. I'm the Vice President for Development and External Affairs here at the college, and I'd like to welcome you this afternoon. We're pleased to announce an ongoing collaboration between our research center, the Siena College Research Institute, and the New York State Association of Realtors. We'll hear today about the first study conducted by SRI as a part of a collaboration, an investigation of how New Yorkers feel about home ownership. Siena Research Institute, as you know, surveys New Yorkers throughout the year on political views, economic interests, as well as many aspects of life that together make up what we call the fabric of life in New York State. We believe that home ownership and our attitude towards where we live is an important part of life today for all New Yorkers. I want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank our partners from New York State Association of Realtors, their president, Hank Fries, their Chief Executive Officer, Duncan McKenzie, and the Director of Communications and Marketing, Sal Provedera. Now, before we hear some comments from Hank, I'd like to turn this over to Don Levy. Dr. Don Levy, as you know, is our Director of the Siena College Research Institute. Don?
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. And thank you all for coming out this afternoon. Also, a warm welcome to my friends from the New York State Association of Realtors. As Dave mentioned, we have started an ongoing collaboration with NYSAR that you'll see ongoing releases over the next several years. This is the first release, and this is a sort of a benchmarking study that we'll run through today on New Yorkers' experience with, attitudes towards home ownership, both their sentiment, but we're also going to touch on some of the key issues that are currently involved in the political domain relative to home ownership. In the coming months, we're going to be building on some of the work that many of you are familiar that we already do with the Consumer Confidence Index that we do regularly here in New York State. And we're going to be adding a new release that will be measuring real estate sentiment amongst residents across the entire state. Similar to the manner in which we present you with the material on consumer confidence, we will be presenting the Real Estate Sentiment Index beginning in July, not only statewide, but for each of 9 different MSAs across the state. So at that point, you'll get an ongoing read on how New Yorkers, both across the entire state, but also within specific areas, feel about the value of their property, whether or not it's a good time to buy and or sell. So we look forward to that release coming in July. Today I want to talk about our first release in this project, the special survey on home ownership here in New York State. This is a survey in which we interviewed 1,015 New Yorkers for the fellow stats geeks amongst us. I always like to talk about margin of error. It has a margin of error plus or minus 3. And some of the questions that I'm going to be talking about were asked only of those people who own homes. And when I report to you on those questions, and you can see those in the crosstabs, those of you who picked them up, the margin of error on those questions is plus or minus 4.3. Okay, home ownership in New York State. We found in our survey of 1,015 respondents here across the state, when we look at upstate or we look at the suburbs, and when I refer to suburbs, I'm talking about the area around New York City, Long Island, and the general Westchester area, we find that home ownership remains at and about where the census has reported of late, between 66 and 68% of respondents own homes. That figure is less in New York City, where approximately 1/3 of respondents indicated that they own the property in which they live. How satisfied are New Yorkers with home ownership? How do they feel about owning a home? Well, there are very few things that you can ask people in which you get this kind of satisfaction number. 97% of New Yorkers indicate, of those who own a home, that they are either somewhat or very satisfied. And the very satisfied point represents 2/3 of all respondents. Additionally, 84% of New Yorkers, these are New Yorkers whether they own a home or not, indicate that owning a home remains a very significant part of achieving the American dream. So by no means is the idea, the dream, the conception, the quest to own a home diminishing amongst New York respondents. 88% of people who own a home say absolutely, owning a home is definitely part of the American dream. 75% of people who don't currently own a home agree. We asked a question that has been asked repeatedly in many surveys, and we asked people to say on a continuum, is owning a home more of a comfort or a burden? 81% of people who currently own a home indicate that owning a home continues to be much more of a comfort than a burden. And that idea of their home being a comfort to them is higher actually amongst New York City residents and upper income respondents. We gave people another shot at that question. We said, I want you to agree or disagree with this question. Sometimes my home just feels like an anchor. To what degree would people be willing to say that despite it being a comfort, at times it feels like it's weighing me down? Only 1/3, 31% of people indicated that at times their home feels like an anchor. 61% of people disagreed with that statement. So it seems it's no wonder that a majority of New Yorkers, 52%, support the idea that the government should do all it can to increase the percentage of Americans that own a home. So we still find that a majority, 52% of New Yorkers, this is of homeowners and or renters, support the idea that the government should do all it can to increase the percentage of Americans that own a home. 32% of people disagreed with that. So nearly 1/3 of people do not support the government increasing home ownership. Now, it is noteworthy that support for governmental support of home ownership is highest amongst those who currently rent, those people who don't currently own a home, and highest amongst people who are lower income New Yorkers. Okay, why are New Yorkers so satisfied? What do they like about owning a home? Well, we asked a series of sentiment questions to try to understand the connection that people have with their home. So we phrased a series of statements. We asked people, to what degree for you is this true? 81% of people said, my home is an expression of who I am. It says something unique about me. Now, there are really only very few things that people are willing to say that about. So 81% of people feel as though their home is an expression of who they are. That was, in fact, significantly higher amongst women than amongst men. We asked people about the element of pride. Are you proud to own a home? Owning my own home makes me proud. It was always something I wanted. 91% of homeowners agree with that statement. 68% agree very strongly with that. How about your community, your neighborhood? Do you just live isolated in your own four walls, or do you feel a sense of connection to the community in which your home is embedded? So the statement was, I feel a sense of connection to my neighborhood and community. 84% of homeowners in New York agreed with that statement. Interesting, that sense of agreement was even higher in New York City. So the respondents in New York City feel a greater connection than the 84% statewide to their neighborhood and community. We asked them, what I think is kind of a very sentimental question. To what degree do you agree that my home is where lasting family memories are made? So do you relate the sort of traffic through time of your family, your household, to your house? 90% of respondents agreed with that statement. 63, nearly 2/3, strongly. Probably wouldn't come as any surprise that that sense of identifying your home with lasting family memories increases with the number of years that you've been in your home. So we found that as well. How about where your home is located? 89% of respondents said my home is perfectly located near everything I need. So there's a tremendous sense that not only do I love my house, but I've picked the right place to live, and I've developed a sense of connection to my community. Again, a little bit stronger in New York City.